Warren Mabee is the director of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Policy at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. Professor Mabee, thanks for your time tonight. I do appreciate it. First of all, what is the significance of Line 5? Explain to our viewers how important it is to the Canadian economy.
It's actually a very, very important energy connection between us and the United States. It carries just over 500,000 barrels of oil every day through the state of Michigan into Sarnia. So it's feeding oil into Sarnia, into Ontario, and that oil is further distributed into Quebec. So about 2/3 of the oil that is used in Quebec and about a little bit over half of the oil that's used in Ontario every day passes through Line 5. It's incredibly important to those economies.
All right. To be clear, so that people get a sense, this supplies the jet fuel for Pearson Airport, for all kinds of refineries and so on. So it is a big deal, but it's also important to the U.S. economy as well, correct?
It is important to the U.S. economy. It's part of the whole integrated energy infrastructure that we share between us and the U.S. A lot of the oil that passes through Line 5 does originate in Alberta or sometimes in Saskatchewan. So we are seeing Canadian product passing through. But, Canada and the U.S. have benefited for many, many years of developing this integrated, highly connected network of pipes that feed different portions of our economy.
What effect would a shutdown have? I'm going to get to in a moment to whether or not we're actually going to see one in the next 3 days here, but what effect would a shutdown have?
Well, in the short term, we're going to see a bump in prices. Almost certainly across Ontario and Quebec, we'll see prices at the pump go up for gasoline and for diesel fuel. We'll see increased surcharges for aviation fuel. We'll see increased prices for propane. And, we forget that a lot of people still heat their homes with propane and rely on propane for cooking purposes. So there are products that we depend on that are going to become more expensive as the refineries and the suppliers have to find alternative routes.
How likely is it that we'll see Line 5 actually shut down this coming Wednesday?
Well, it's looking more and more like something that could happen. For a long time, this sounded like something that nobody would allow to happen, that there would be enough pushback from the Canadian government, from the Ontario government, Quebec government, that Michigan would stand down. But Governor Whitmer ran on a platform that she would see this line shut down. She's using really every tool in her toolbox to have the line shut down, at least temporarily, while they're looking at this connection under the Mackinac Strait. And this is now looking more and more like something that could happen.
But, people point out, look, people who are tamping down the fears a little bit say, look, there's no way this can happen. Pipelines in the United States are a federally regulated jurisdiction. I mean, it makes you look, how could the governor actually force the shutdown of the pipeline? People are creating these images. What you should do, run down to some pump somewhere and turned off some valve? No, it's not that. How could she actually get this done?
So she is using the court systems, and there's an effort right now to move it from federal courts into the state courts, which would be a little bit more favorable maybe to the case that the governor is making. But you're absolutely right. Pipelines are a federal jurisdiction, and there is a treaty which governs pipelines between Canada and the U.S., which would come into play with this connection. So this is something where you could potentially see the president involved, and certainly you could see the prime minister involved.
Because Enbridge has said, right? Enbridge has said it has no intention of shutting down. It's in the court process. Actually, I think they're in some sort of mediation at this point ahead of, I think their next meeting is on Wednesday, which probably isn't going to be, the time frame won't allow some sort of agreement as the shutdown approaches unless she puts off the shutdown. I mean, whose ball is the court really in here?
Well, I would say that right now the governor is moving things forward. This is moving on a very aggressive agenda that the governor has set. But you are right; the courts are there, and the courts are acting in order to, protect the interests of the company and protect the interests of the industry itself. And that will mean that there's a lot of different ways that this could come out. I guess is what we could say.
Yeah, I mean, Enbridge points to the pipeline's safety record. No spill in 65 years, but look, there are First Nations groups in Ontario and tribal groups in Michigan lining up against this, lining up on the side of the governor. What is the long-term viability of this pipeline, even if there isn't a shutdown in the immediate future?
Well, certainly we're starting to see the writing on the wall against a lot of these major energy infrastructures. There are serious concerns about the long-term safety of these pipelines. It does seem that the older a pipeline gets, the greater the likelihood that something could go wrong. Maybe the odds are increasing in favor of something going wrong, and we're seeing increasing public pushback. And so there is some indication that as time goes on, we are going to be stepping away from these major pipeline infrastructure towards other things. And at the same time, we see electrification and we see people moving away from gasoline and diesel-driven cars, which is going to reduce the demand for those products. So, will this pipeline still be here 65 years from now? I'm guessing probably not. The real question is, how long will it take to really shut it down, and how can we do it without damaging economies on both sides of the border?
Yeah, fair enough. Back, two quick questions to finish here. In the event of a shutdown, how does oil get to central Canada?
So there's a few short-term things that could happen. Certainly there are rail and truck options. Truck is really a non-starter. It's so expensive to move vast amounts of oil by truck that it would only be done on a short-term basis. Rail is a little bit more likely. There's also the opportunity to use the seaway. So it would be possible to put oil onto barges or onto ships and move it through the seaway. All of these things, though, involve greater risk than the pipeline that they would be replacing. And so that's one thing I think environmental groups need to think about. Are you trading one certain risk for more uncertainty and more risk in other options?
All right, Professor Warren Mabee, thanks so much for your time here, sir. Good to talk to you. Take care.
Thank you for having me.